Welcome, everyone. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most exciting expansions we've seen at the intersection of AI, education, and talent. For nearly a decade, Handshake has helped millions of students and graduates launch their careers. But now, as AI is transforming how we work, learn, and build, Handshake is taking a huge step into the heart of the AI ecosystem with the launch of Handshake AI. So today I am so excited to be joined by three leaders at the forefront of all of this: Garrett, the co founder and CEO of Handshake, Christine, the Chief Education Strategy Officer, and Sahil, Handshake's new Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer for Handshake AI. I personally have so many questions, so we'll unpack what Handshake AI is, why this move makes sense, and where the future of AI talent is going. So I guess to start with the big picture, Garrett, Handshake's mission for the longest time now has been to democratize opportunity for all college students, regardless of where they go to school, who they know. How has that mission and vision guided Handshake's journey so far? And how does it set the stage for your newest initiative?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you step back 10 years ago, when we got Handshake started, it was really in this pursuit of trying to make it more fair to find your way into a job that you love, regardless of, what school you go to or what your parents do for a living. That was, a story that I had faced in going to community college for 2 years and then transferring up to Michigan Tech and then working in Palantir in Silicon Valley and trying to unlock more opportunities for young people in America. Fast forward 10 years, where we are now the number one place that young professionals come to find the first internship, first job, second job, third job. The network is, really strong now. There's over 1 million companies that recruit on Handshake, including 100% of the Fortune 500. And then we also partner 1,600 plus universities, which I'm sure Christine will talk more about. Really proud to help them in their pursuit of helping students graduate from college to career. And really, how this business has unfolded is about 18 months ago, we saw a lot of the AI players and frontier labs trying to, as the world has shifted in AI on the post training side of the house, trying to shift from collecting information from humans on the generalist side of the house. So that might have looked like in computer vision scenarios, like drawing boundary boxes around stop signs and annotating road environments, to shift towards experts. And experts really are PhDs and master students at the forefront of knowledge in finance, in law, in medicine, in accounting, in STEM fields like biology and chemistry, physics and mathematics. These labs and the frontier teams need human data from experts. So I think, we started to see that about 18 months ago. And we also started to hear from our students that the experience was really disjointed and frustrating. Like, folks were struggling to get paid on time. They were struggling to get trained effectively. They were being inundated with requests from multiple different channels. And what we saw is an opportunity to help, like Handshake has always done, like build a marketplace to make this process more effective and really enjoyable for everyone involved. Fast forward to today, we now partner with 6 of the frontier labs, providing them expert reasoning data that help them improve the performance of their models. And we do so in a way that really takes into account our higher education partners and our PhD and master's students participating in this work and trying to make it awesome for everyone. So we call them fellows internally. In the future, you can get like badges on your profile. There might be like leaderboards by schools. These students and postdoctoral students, they're learning frontier AI skills. They're working with the latest models. And so we feel this can be really additive for their career and their understanding of the modern AI tooling out there. But it also is, if you'd imagine, it's like an amazing opportunity to earn great money. You can make like $60, $120 an hour with really applying your knowledge at the cornerstone of your expertise to help make these models better.
Yeah, it's so interesting because for the long, even pre-AI, Handshake has always sat in this very interesting intersection of institutions that are providing the skilling, the students and experts themselves, and then enterprise. And right now, you have this moment where all three of those are going through very fundamental changes that are highly disruptive. I'm curious how you're thinking about the trends and needs in the talent market and how they've influenced you all to expand into AI? Was there a certain inflection point where you realized that, these foundation model companies are banging down our door to access specifically our PhD network? And I think maybe to take a step back for those in the audience who might not be as technical, why is there a need for expert data? I think for us who've been keeping up the space, there is people are people know generally that there's kind of a data ceiling that we're reaching. So maybe Sahil and Garrett, how are you thinking about why there's such an acute need for experts in the data space?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think basically if you rewind the clock like 2 years ago and you looked at the first release of ChatGPT as an example, or like less than 2 years ago, um, it was really bad at like a lot of pretty basic things, right? Like it couldn't follow basic instructions. If you asked it to make an itinerary for you, it would mess up locations. It would mess up like where landmarks were. Like so, it was really bad. And I think the pace at which these models have developed, given how much data has been pouring in, is also like pretty fascinating. It's pretty remarkable. Like it started where you could probably get a high school student to train a model on math because the model was so bad. And so anyone who'd sort of had like really solid like algebra skills or pre-calc skills was pretty capable of improving it. And what we've seen is it's gotten, the models have gotten better and better and better across a pretty wide variety of fields. And so now finding areas where the models are, really not performant, and do need like, strong oversight from humans with pretty deep domain expertise, we're seeing there's a lot of value there because those are the areas where the models are still struggling, and really unable to perform kind of at the highest quality. And if you think about like why that's so important, right? Like there's probably not that many people, individuals in the world or users who are going on ChatGPT and asking some super complex like astrophysics question, right? That's not the like market that the labs are really going after. But what you're seeing is like they've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars training these models. And if you look at sort of what the frontier labs are now starting to do, they're trying to like monetize through enterprise applications and through like actually like injecting into real production type workflows. The bar and the consequence, or the bar for quality and the consequence if something goes wrong, is really high, oftentimes, right? And so you need your model to be performant in a lot of ways at really really high levels of knowledge in order to be able to have them be used in a lot of different types of workflows and in different types of companies and different types of production environments. So I think that's sort of driving this like real demand for more expert level talent. I think one thing that maybe we'll get into later, but I think is still worth just like putting a pin in. I don't think the only people that can participate in evaluating and testing and sort of calibrating models are like super smart PhDs. I think there is a huge opportunity, especially when we think about like safety testing and evaluations, when we think about like the idiosyncrasies of models and understanding ultimately like how they're perceived by different demographics of people, to really include a lot more people in sort of that training and evaluation, which is something that I think we're particularly passionate about here at Handshake as well, is just making sure that we can kind of democratize the training and evaluation of AI to the people who are going to be using it in the future, right? Which is the students and the youth of today.
Yeah, and it makes a ton of sense because, as I'm sure a lot of people in the AI world and edtech world have been hearing about agents, it's clear that the future of work and talent, when we'll go deeper into it, is evolving to include both working alongside AI. And so having these systems that are highly capable and trained on subject matter expertise is even more important. And we can't just sit with these super generalized models. So it's very clear that there's a lot of value that we're bringing on the AI front. How does this align, especially Christine, would love to hear your thoughts on this, with Handshake's core mission of democratizing career opportunities? And I'd love to also hear a little bit more about how Handshake AI has been talked about among all your, higher education partners.
Yeah, the response so far from our partners has been really positive. I'm really glad that the conversations we've had have shown Our partners are eager for students to have well-paid opportunities where they're actually using their deep expertise, their domain knowledge, and pushing the boundaries of where AI is going. I mean, the reality is we're all learning. We're all figuring out how AI will be further embedded into both education as well as the workforce. And as we develop that, who better than our own students to help design that, to help train, to help evaluate, to help really build what it is we will all be using in the future. So our partners so far have responded very positively to Handshake AI. And I can say that I have personally talked to over 200 partners myself in one-on-one conversations. And so they're all encouraging their students to consider applying for some of these fellow opportunities. They're helping us to market and get this out there. I think the other thing to keep in mind is this is also coming at a really good time for a lot of our graduate students who are losing funding. They're losing funding through research, they're losing funding through their grants, and this is providing a place for them to actually make good pay, as Garrett was just saying. And so from that standpoint, we're continuing to democratize opportunity. People need work, we're giving them work, and it's high level, deep expertise work. So we really love that. And we love that we're able to actually partner with our network of educators to continue pushing the mission forward in this way. And I think long term, we can get to this more in our conversation. We're actually allowing for our partners to be part of the training process so that all of their students, regardless of whether they go into technical or non-technical positions in the future, will actually be AI enabled and will be able to do that regardless of industry or role.
I guess to take a step back, what does that process actually look like between all three of these stakeholders, between working with, the AI model labs, the actual students themselves, and the university partners? And I'd love to actually double click more on the latter two parts. What does it actually look like for a PhD, a postdoc, to be working with Handshake AI?
So what happens is we will post on the school's Handshake platform that there's an opportunity for different domain areas to apply. Students will apply through Handshake. They'll come in, they will go through onboarding, where we're learning more about their domain expertise, their level of knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. If they make it past that, they go through onboarding, where we actually are also training them on how to train AI and making sure that they are not only domain experts, but also experts in how to do the annotation work that will be needed for the labs. And so we provide actually a lot of community and training, which is different than other vendors who do this work. We really care about that fellow experience. And then once there's an available project, we farm that out to the fellows that have been onboarded, and they're able to do their projects over the course of, sometimes it's a week or two, sometimes it's a longer project, might go as long as 6 or 8 weeks. And we have project leads that actually work with the cohort of fellows to ensure that they're getting feedback, that they're learning how to do the annotation work stronger and better. And then that gets communicated and shared with the AI labs.
Same thing as the Move Fellowship that you all have also launched?
This is the Move Fellowship, exactly.
Yeah, I think maybe the thing I'd add to that is I'd say one of the most like clear things about Handshake that kind of drew me to join the team is just how much of an emphasis is placed on, we call them fellows, the fellow experience. I think across the industry, there's sometimes people need to be reminded that the like people that are actually like doing the work, the real asset here are the experts, right? It's the people who are actually doing it. And I think what has been very key at every single decision point of the experience of the product, the support, is how do we make sure that the fellows have an incredible experience. And I think, it's something that kind of even boils down to the name.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's called Handshake AI, right? It's not called something else. And it's not like trying to obfuscate the brand, which means if there is like a negative experience on the platform, the core brand of Handshake suffers. And I think it was actually a very intentional decision by Garrett, Christine, and the board, which I think is so spot on, because it makes it so that we have to make every product decision, every service decision, et cetera, in service of of those fellows. So I think tons and tons of attention goes into making sure they have an incredible experience. And I think, Christine and her team, to make sure that fellows have a great experience, you really, really need to make sure that the universities at all levels are really excited and bought in. Or else, I don't think it'll work nearly as well.
Yeah, I love that you kind of brought up the data elephant in the room, because there's obviously been a lot of criticism in the past that some data companies are building their business on these underpaid, overworked contractors. They're doing, as you mentioned, just general repetitive labeling tasks, and there isn't really a long-term path forward. And it sounds like you all are building something very intentionally different. I'm curious, how are you thinking about building that long-term value, skill development, or even credibility? Obviously, there's the money factor. That's great. That's great for creating opportunities for this talent. But yeah, would love to hear more about how you're thinking about long-term value and skill development for these experts.
Yeah, I think long-term value comes in a few ways, right? So there's the core mission of Handshake, which fundamentally has always been like help people like relaunch their careers and get jobs. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's still very much the North Star of the company. And I actually see Handshake AI as an awesome accelerant and complement to that kind of North Star vision. I'll sort of explain that in a sec. Then there's the skill development of, all right, whatever people hear, whatever people say, like there is going to be a very different paradigm in terms of how people work in a world where AI is like much more pervasive in a lot of different jobs and a lot of different functions, right? And the people that I think are going to be best positioned to be able to thrive in that type of economy are people who are, very AI native or enabled and understand how to work with it, how to supervise it, how to question it, right, in the right ways. And I think, Handshake's kind of core goal and mission is to like marry these two things where, I've probably produced and reviewed, close to thousands of these tasks myself throughout my career. And it is probably one of the best ways that you can learn about what AI models are capable of, what they're not capable of, different ways to use them, where they can go wrong. And it just kind of developed, you develop your own sort of understanding and intuition about how to use them and how to work with them. And I think doing that process, I think we're jazzed at the idea that you can not only learn the skills, through doing that work, but you can also get paid. And so it's like this, like almost no brainer to do, right? If you're a student or you're a fellow, because you get to kill two birds in one stone, and it's fully on your time. It's flexible, it's very much prioritizing your experience. But the value from that is we learn so much about you too, doing that, right? Like, what are the signals you get from people who produce great quality data? They're really high attention to detail. They're extremely thoughtful in their domain. You kind of have a much more broader or sort of like deep set of information, which can help them, add to their profile or help them like get matched with jobs that, they can be a much longer term thing for them. So I think it pretty exciting when you think about the longer term play. Obviously Handshake AI is something that's great to be able to keep folks engaged and be sort of this evergreen source of opportunity. But it's also a place where you can sort of create a lot of signal for yourself to then get better matched with jobs.
I love the signal element. I think for all of us in the ed tech world, universities have obviously been talking about rethinking the career pipeline for ages now, and it's almost as if you now have people talk about maybe Web3 would do that, but it's almost interesting that in this AI moment, you actually have with something like Handshake AI an opportunity to unbundle a lot of skills. Christine, I'm curious for the conversations you're having with these universities. How are they thinking about their role in this ecosystem? And this might be a little bit of a far out vision, but is there a world where Handshake AI is kind of the system offering credit or recognition for students who participate in the industry AI projects? Is Handshake kind of this bridge between academia and industry and AI innovation? I'd love to hear how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, honestly, I hope so. I hope that we do get to that point. I think the Universities right now are on a huge spectrum when it comes to their development and evolution of how they're thinking about AI, how they're thinking about training their students, how they're embedding it into curriculum or into the student experience. You have some schools that have obviously added programs. There might be a degree program, or there might be a certification, or there might be like a center of excellence around AI. You have other schools who have actually hired in experts, domain experts, that also have expertise in AI that are embedded into every single degree program, right? So you've kind of got everything from just like a smaller niche side of desk program to something that's embedded in every single major
Mm.
and everything in between. And then I think you still have some schools that are talking about it and are trying to figure out, what does this mean? Let's have a task force on AI. So you kind of have everything under the sun right now. And I think the reality is people are starting to recognize in education how important it is for their students to have AI skills in order to be hired by employers. From our own platform data, we have seen the mention of AI tools 4x over the past 2 years. So that's been huge. And we know that it doesn't matter what industry you're going into. It's not just people going into tech or going into engineering that need to know this. It's people going into marketing. It's people going into sales. It's people going into fintech. There's all sorts of types of roles and industries that are necessary. And I think to kind of build off of what Sahil was saying earlier, we would love to be the place where we can provide training and credentialing to all students, undergraduate and graduate, so that they have the skills and knowledge necessary, regardless of what industry or role they go into. I would love for them to be trained by Handshake AI so that they can really be the most competitive candidate possible. That would be such a dream, and I think we're very clearly working towards that. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to partner with our EDU colleagues to sort of figure out what that can look like.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious, maybe on the flip side, have you gotten any challenges from university systems, or or pushback? I'm sure some people will point to this idea that you're essentially commercializing graduate students, and we know you all are not. But I'm curious what if you've had those sort of conversations, and how you've gotten universities on board with this model.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually haven't had a single school tell me that at all. So that's been really great. I think, if anything, they're most concerned about making sure that their students are prepared to be able to go into these roles. And the way that they're viewing a lot of this human labeling work and human training work is that it's providing an opportunity for those students to actually shape what that AI can do. I mean, we have testimonials from students at top graduate programs like UPenn, for example, who come back to us after doing the fellow experience and say, I had no idea that I could use my domain expertise in music theory or in education or in physics to actually help train the models to do something that would have been helpful to me while I was writing my dissertation. And now I am contributing to my field of expertise for future scholars coming after me, right? Like, there's really this sense of almost like giving back and paying it forward that I think our university partners, for the most part, really understand. I think there are some partners who are a little bit newer to this whole space that often have clarifying questions. They want to understand, what does annotation work look like? What types of projects are fellows actually working on? What types of questions will they get, or will they be prompting the LLMs for? Those are more the types of questions that we've gotten and that I've gotten personally. And of course, they want to know that their fellows are going to be well taken care of, which luckily we are able to say, your students will not be better paid and have more transparency than working with us.
And I actually like to go a bit deeper on that. What does the day-to-day work look like compared to a generic contractor? You all are going to be known for quality, nuance, vertical expertise. I'm curious what both onboarding and day-to-day work, and how that contrasts with some other data labeling companies.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for us, I'd say probably the best thing we have is this really high trusted relationship with universities and students, right, who use Handshake and have used Handshake to actually get a job. There's value that's already been provided by Handshake to a lot of these folks. And so, if you look at other companies in the space, like they're running ads and they're running, referral program, whatever they can to just kind of get people onboarded. But that costs a lot of money to do. And I think for us, what's really exciting is we can, sort of offer this experience in a pretty trusted way, and then use, instead of sort of spending all this money on like ads, we can spend it on making sure the experience from a training perspective, particularly is really good. And so essentially, the experience is you get an email, you get a notification on Handshake, you come in, you onboard, you go through sort of this like validation of your experience and information, all of that stuff. It's pretty quick. But then really quickly, we want you to like take a stab at producing data that can really help a model. And so, what that looks like, there's a few different sort of like cuts of what that can look like. But one that's particularly like popular or prominent is, can you stump a model, right? The best way that these things get trained is you first have to identify what they can't do well, right? And so how do you identify what they can't do well? A lot of it is just trial and error. Like it's just trial and error. And so if you can get someone who's, a PhD student in physics to be able to stump a model on something that they know about physics, like that tells you a lot that, okay, this person, one, has some level of expertise that the model clearly like can't handle. But two, like they're able to write it in a way and verify it in a way that actually like you do need to be able to have to produce good data, right? And so it's honestly kind of fun. I think for someone like me, who I'm not a PhD in anything, so it can be a little bit more challenging to stump a model. But it's pretty awesome to like feel like, hey, my domain expertise, like AI's got nothing on me yet, kind of thing, and you get to stump it. And then once you do that, right, like there's a whole set of other potential projects that we could put you on for a particular lab or for a particular cut of data that we want to sell across the board. And then in terms of the day-to-day experience, like what are you like literally doing? It can depend on the type of data that people want. So sometimes they want evaluations. And so what that means is, hey, here's like a set of prompts that we know that we want our model to perform really well on. So run those prompts, have it get a response from AI Lab X's model, and then this PhD from physics, in physics, reviews that response to whatever question and tries to evaluate it on some set of criteria, right? So that's like a whole branch of work. Another branch of work is being able to actually produce like data from scratch. So I think now maybe it's a little bit more well known, but the amount of data that's out there on the internet has basically already been trained on, right? So very, very rapidly, these labs ran out of data. And so, on the pre-training side, which used to sort of be the big area of improvement. And now there's been a huge shift in spend and sort of focus to post-training, which is where you're optimizing the model for formatting and instruction following and all these sort of things to make sure that it can actually comply and or be useful to what humans really need to be able to leverage them, right? And certainly also to sort of develop more and more of this expertise that isn't really available online, right? Or available to crawl. And so, another sort of type of work can be writing something that, the model can't respond well to, and then actually producing, the correct answer or like a golden answer that it can be used to get trained on, right? And there's a whole, there's other, slews of data, but I'd say those are probably the two core ones.
Yeah. I love that you bring those up because, I think at first glance, some people might think data work is like, is this a cat versus this a dog image type work? And the types of examples you're bringing up are almost the exact opposite of a lot of the tension that we're seeing in the education ecosystem, where in university systems, so much of the work and fear is, are students offloading their cognition? Are we losing some sort of metacognition with these AI platforms? And if anything, some of the work that you're doing on Handshake AI for these experts are demonstrations of skill. It's things where you're validating that you understand these models, challenging where they're wrong. And those things are not, cognitive offloading type work that is explicitly demonstrating your human expertise. So I love that it's, that way that you're almost showing and displaying skills, credibility. I guess to go back to the big picture question, Garrett, maybe I'm curious how you're balancing focus on Handshake AI with Handshake's core products. Obviously, there's a lot of synergies. How are you thinking about balancing both? And you've built the leading early career network. So, curious how you're thinking about the existing strengths and translating this into Handshake AI.
I mean, we have an incredible team that I think has been really committed to building a business of impact and growth over the last like decade, and feel really excited about where we sit today. I mean, core business will be far over $250 million of ARR by the end of the year, and growing at a pretty incredible clip, as you might imagine right now, in the demand that we're seeing from a lot of the labs as well as the core enterprise that uses Handshake. I think as a to really answer your question, like I think this opportunity in human data is a really natural extension of our mission. I mean, our original mission was to help students jumpstart, or restart their career and help people kind of explore and discover and find their fit in the world of work. And as work and the roles in work change around us, I think there'll be a huge opportunity to help our higher education partners and our students directly like evolve in the skills that they need to learn given the job displacement that we most inevitably will see over the next decade. So I think Handshake has an important role to play there. I also think we have a really, probably most excitingly, have a role to play in like building the hiring marketplace of the future. And so what that really looks like is, if you think about going to Indeed and you go through, thousands of job listings trying to read multi-page job descriptions, if you're a young professional trying to navigate where you fit in work, like this experience isn't encouraging. It isn't providing you information you need. You're not able to learn from near peers. You're still applying with like a very fixed resume with generally like limited work experience. And so I think the future for Handshake is really building this flywheel around connecting more information about what you're interested in, what your skills are, what type of companies you think are cool, what does an ideal day look like for you, talking about projects maybe you've done in class, or maybe you're an alumni, actual real work that you've done in your current employer, and actually communicating directly with like an AI agent that's helping you really match with the right companies. And then on the company side, like the recruiting process hasn't changed in, I would say, like 50 years. I mean, it's your sourcing, your screening, your scheduling. These are tasks that I think will very, very different in an agentic future. And specifically, the opportunity for Handshake is to build this, to make your time in the job that we're hired to do. We're hired to help people navigate their careers, and that means that like your precious time needs to be very, effective on Handshake. We believe that we can build the largest marketplace and talent network that matches people better than anyone else can. And that is, that's a huge market opportunity. You can build a company, that is very, very large and helps, hundreds of millions of people around the globe. And I think in this moment, AI is a massive catalyst for accelerating that vision. That's how I'd answer the question.
I would just jump in to add on to what Garrett was saying. As we move into a world where we can have agentic job search, we actually are increasing the amount of time that humans can connect with humans. And I think that's actually a really important piece, both for employers to hear and schools to hear. We are not proposing a future where the machines and the AI agents are going to do everything. The reality is you still want to meet who your future coworker is going to be. Sahil wants to know who he's hiring onto his team. Students want to know, am I going to get along with this person? Do I actually want to be in this work culture? We want to facilitate making those connections happen faster so that the humans actually can interact. But we want more humans to be able to get access to more opportunities, and vice versa, for more employers to get access to more talent. I think that's where everything Garrett is saying here continues to just reinforce the initial mission of democratizing opportunity. We can do this in a way that actually breaks down some of those barriers that unfortunately still exist.
I think it's an Iron Man suit for every person. Like it just allows you, like every previous technical revolution that's happened, it allows you to spend your time as a human being in the more important places. And I love all Christine's points.
Yeah, I love that. Obviously, I think the entire concept of work is changing, and I love that you all have this view that it's creating more opportunities rather than just eliminating jobs. I'm curious how, for I'm sure a lot of people in the university audience or students themselves who might be listening to this, you all have a very unique window into how all of this is changing. So curious if you have any thoughts on how students and new grads should navigate all of this. Is the traditional first job moving towards something that's a little bit more project based or portfolio style work, something like working with Handshake AI? I'd love some predictions on how you're thinking about this evolution.
Sahil, you want to take this first? Or you want me to go?
You can go first. I'll go
Okay.
second.
So what I've been telling folks is entry level jobs are not going away. However, entry level jobs are being redefined. And as a new employee, as someone who is fresh into the workforce, you have to be watching and observing and seeing how things are shifting and changing, because the reality is AI is playing a larger role in early talent and in entry level roles. So that means for a worker who's going into an entry level role, expectations are probably going to be higher from your employer. Productivity is probably expected to be faster than it was before. You might be expected to not only augment your work with AI, but then to supplement with the remaining time you have left, higher order thinking, right? So these are some of the ways in which entry level roles might shift and change. And we have a front row seat to sort of what that looks like across different industries and different roles. And again, some employers are farther along than other employers. So as we learn this, our job is to share this data, share this information back with schools, back with students, so that they can really put on that Iron Man suit and ideally be the most competitive possible as they go into the workforce. We do that through a number of ways. But I think if I were talking to a student right now, if students are listening to this podcast, I would say you need to learn AI. Like that is literally one of the first things you should go do right now. And if you don't know, or you don't have courses at your school to be able to do some of that, you can learn a lot of it on your own. And you can actually practice all of those pieces, but you should figure out what that looks like for your industry. So learn it broadly, but then actually learn it for your area. So if you want to go into marketing, you should be learning what tools are people in marketing, maybe your growth marketing, maybe your field marketing, whatever it is, you should be getting more specific into what are the types of tools that those employees are actually using. Because the reality is AI is not going to take your job. Somebody else who knows AI is going to take your job. And so the best thing you can do is start to learn those particular skills. And I think that's where we're most excited about Handshake AI being able to actually come in and supplement with the type of training that I think all students need.
Yeah, almost like we need more of these T-shaped individuals, very horizontal,
Yeah.
general understanding of AI, but expertise.
Yes.
And almost, you all sit at this intersection where you have both the job network and the skills development partnerships with these AI labs. And both of those are so synergistic. It's dynamic because you have a view into both. That I think Handshake is truly going to be that Iron Man suit.
Yeah, I'd actually just like add on to that. It's funny because like with all these like vibe coding tools,
Yeah.
people have been just like, oh my God, it's the death of computer science as a field of study. Like nobody should go into it. I just I have the total opposite take on that, where like if you've ever vibe coded something, you realize you spend you spend 3x more time debugging and like figuring out like how to like actually make your thing production ready or useful than you do actually like writing the like foundational code. And the people who are like way better at using vibe coding tools and who can like really 10x themselves are people who understand computer science and like know how to code. And I think we're very, very far away from a world where AI can just like one shot every type of workflow. Like I spent the last 18 months building applications at my previous employer in government organizations and companies, and I like very clearly can say that we're quite far away from like a fully agentic future. It may come, right? But like there's definitely going to be like a pretty clear time period where like humans are going to need to like really interact with these models and these systems to get the job done. And so having like an understanding of AI tools is like obviously super critical and super essential to like know what does the shape of your field like, what's it going to look like? but it's no substitute still for like really maintaining your domain expertise and learning about it, doubling down on it even more, because that's where you're really going to be able to like 10x yourself, which I think is really exciting. And the great thing about AI tools is like you can also learn a new field like really quickly, right? It's never been easier to learn about to learn how to code or learn about biology or whatever. Like I mean, there's so many like really exciting other like educational forms of AI in terms of teaching and personalizing, tutors for the way that we teach students. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add in really quick? I think the other piece is as AI becomes even more prominent, the skills that we often talk about as soft skills will only become more important. I genuinely believe that. Your ability to critical think, your ability to communicate, your ability to go into a room and read the room and understand the relational dynamics and what's happening and how you influence people. Like these are all things that are going to become even more critical and things that truly AI isn't going to be replacing. And so as human beings, if you want to separate yourself from being, a good employee to a great employee or someone who rises the ranks into senior leadership, these are still very critical skills that you should be spending time honing now while you are a student and continuing to focus on even as a professional alongside your technical skills in AI.
I love all of this advice. It sounds like, build yourselves as experts in different domains. It sounds like, obviously everybody can be a generalist now. So how do you create expertise? It sounds like building those soft skills is even more important. I guess on the big, future facing question, and it might be a little bit out there, but I'm curious what how you all are thinking about, uh, you know, this evolution towards AGI. We're obviously currently in a place, and it sounds like we'll be in this place for a while, where models will need humans in the loop for red teaming, validation, feedback. But some people are trying to automate those steps too. Is there a world where, the humans in the loop today are just a bridge to full autonomy? Are we going to train ourselves out of the loop? And I know this is super out there and nobody has questions, but since you all are some of the people working on solutions in this intersection, curious how you're thinking about that tension.
I don't know. I think it's really hard to predict like how good do these models get to the like 5 nines of quality, right? What I can say is like there are, especially in companies, right? Like there are certain things that are just like so consequential that like no matter what, you're just gonna want a human there. Like I think a great example is self-driving, right? Obviously, it's really high consequence if something goes wrong, but like basically every pilot or study done in the last however many years has kind of shown that like self-driving cars are safer, fewer accidents, they drive like under the speed limit more consistently, etc., than humans. Yet like only in San Francisco do you see like Waymos and Cruises, kind of driving around. The technology's been there for multiple years, but it's no longer as much of a technology problem as it is a policy problem, a regulation problem. There's a comfortability component of having humans there, and so for a lot of situations in companies, I think there are like pretty core and consequential and critical workflows that you're still going to need humans in the loop for. But I think more importantly, right, like probably like more likely is the work and the time, or so like where people spend their time is going to change, right? If there is a workflow that can be like more or less automated, right, over time, it's hard to say that like eventually it won't be, which is why I think, yes, it's important to have, it's really important to have domain expertise, but I think Christine's point on critical thinking, communication, all of these things become really important, because those are things that like you can't really automate away in the same way, right? Or that you will always want sort of a human or someone that you trust at the company kind of like making those decisions or sort of, whether it's guiding a team of agents, who knows, but you very much do want like that level of like critical thinking communication to be able to make trusted decisions and actions in your company. So to answer your question like very directly, because that's probably a roundabout way, like I don't know if we'll get to a point where like models ever like fully replace like every human on the planet. I mean, it's like a bunch of, it's hard. Who knows? I think it's good sci-fi fodder, but I think there, at least in the like foreseeable future, for me, there is just so much clear like opportunity and room for humans to just be augmented, a lot more thoughtful, a lot more impactful with AI, because I think the models are still quite a bit away from fully identifying everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we are running out of time. I still have so many questions, but it's been so interesting hearing more about how you all are thinking about the Handshake AI vision. As you think about the future, say 3 to 5 years or even 10 years, what is the big picture of what this could become? Paint us a picture of the future you all are building towards, whether that's the specific focus on the higher education side, the AI lab front, or Handshake as a platform. I'd love to hear from each of you on your big vision here.
I mean, I think the power in the 10 years of trust we built in this business is the relationships and trust we build with 1,600 universities, over 1 million companies, over 18 million alumni and students globally. And the opportunity right now with AI is to accelerate creating a much more even playing field and helping people navigate their career. I mean, just take this last weekend. I was like helping my sister-in-law like navigate her career search from hospitality into a tech sales job, and that requires a network and information and access and years of learning about jobs. Like, not everyone has that advantage. I didn't have that advantage growing up in Michigan and going to community college and a state school. And I think our mission in Handshake is to level the playing field with job seekers around the world. And I think there's going to be a radical transition of the type of skills that are required to be successful in this new world of work, with a path towards HEI that is inevitable at this point. I think that will, inevitably displace hundreds of millions of people, and they will need to learn new skills to participate in making a fair wage, and given their passions. I think Handshake can play a role in helping so many people figure out what skills they need to navigate their career and to make money. I think we have an incredible role to play with our amazing higher education partners in helping them equip their students with the skills they need to be successful in this new economy. And I think we can build an incredible business with a huge impact in this future world. And then I would just say, like, what I think people underestimate is how important like distribution and having an audience is in times of technology change. Like, we have an incredible amount of trust built across all four sides of our marketplace. We're working with 6 of the frontier AI labs. I think we can bring a lot of that knowledge to bear in helping all sides of our marketplace and building this like really strong flywheel of career outcomes that saves companies money and helps job seekers be more successful over the next decade.
Okay, amazing. My answer is pretty simple. We're going to keep helping in the next decade. We're going to keep helping students get jobs. We're going to help everybody get jobs. And we're going to do that because we're going to stay at the forefront of whatever the future is. If AI is the future, we're there. And we're going to provide data and insights and training to make sure that students and schools are well prepared for that so that they can get those opportunities. I think the only other thing I would add that we didn't talk about today is I recognize that for a lot of our education partners, any kind of new change can feel a little scary. And I don't want to diminish that. It is real. The fear is there. And I think sometimes the fear is really around, what will my value be? What will I still be able to contribute? Will I still be needed? And my answer to all of our EDU partners is yes, you are very much needed. You provide a very important area of growth and development for our students. And we want to stand alongside you in providing you the type of support and enablement you need to be able to not only be successful yourselves as education institutions, but to provide you with the type of training and enablement so that your students can be the most competitive possible. So we want to be alongside them to envision what their new role can continue to evolve to be as AI continues to become a more and more prominent part of our future. So I'm excited about what we can do.
Love it. Sahil?
Yeah, I think 10 years, the opportunity to like be the place in the world for you to find the best job for you and actually get that job is still the core mission. I think Handshake AI is a great way to continue to get more signal and more data points and more of an understanding of people. And there's obviously going to be even more and more ways that we can be kind of that system of record for every person's professional experience, particularly our students and sort of young professionals, where you can use this technology to much more efficiently match people to jobs that they're going to be interested in, that they're going to be best suited for, that go well beyond sort of like the current process of like a resume review and a cover letter review, which is inherently biased in a lot of ways, time consuming in a lot of ways, and really detrimental to a lot of students across the country, right, across the world. And so I sort of view this as a really, really incredible opportunity to be that like new sort of trusted system of record for people to find a job that they're best suited for and most interested in. And with the caveat or sort of knowledge that like obviously what jobs look like in 10 years is going to be so different from what jobs look like today. And trust is at the core of being able to earn the right to help a student and help a university adjust around preparing people for that new economy. And I think, the work that Handshake's done up until now to like earn that trust really gives us the right to sort of usher people into that new economy and prepare them well. So to me, it's still this like incredible opportunity to be the place where you can go find and get a job that's best suited for you, and making all sides of that process just like way smoother, way more efficient, and way more democratized.
Yeah, maybe in 5-10 years, Handshake will still be that iron suit for students, academics, AI labs even. So if you're building in AI, thinking about talent, or figuring out how academia fits into this next wave of innovation, this is definitely a space to watch, and definitely check out Handshake's AI initiative on their website. Huge thanks to Garrett, Christine, and Sahil for joining us, and we'll see you next time.